On August 28, 2015, 6 strangers entered a white vinyl dome on the slopes of Hawaii's Mauna Loa volcano. They wouldn't breathe unfiltered air, feel rain on their skin, or eat a single fresh vegetable for 365 days. This is NASA's HISEAS mission, one of several Mars analog programs worldwide, where volunteers seal themselves inside cramped habitats to test whether humans can psychologically survive the journey to Mars. Inside that 1,200 square foot dome, smaller than most suburban homes, these 6 people would discover that isolation doesn't just test your ability to endure, it fundamentally rewires how you eat, sleep, communicate, and even who you become. This is the story of how extreme isolation transforms ordinary people into something new, and what their transformation teaches us about surviving on Mars. Chapter 1. Choosing Your Prison hosts multiple Mars isolation experiments. Russia's Mars 500 locked 6 men in a Moscow facility for 520 days. NASA's CHAPIA project in Houston uses a 3D printed habitat to test crews for over a year. The Mars Desert Research Station in Utah squeezes volunteers into an 8-meter diameter cylinder, but HICs push the boundaries of psychological endurance. Located 8,200 feet up Mauna Loa's barren volcanic slope, the HIC's dome looks appropriately alien. The location matters. Crews see only reddish volcanic rock through their portholes. No vegetation, no signs of Earth life. 6 volunteers enter this dome knowing they won't leave for an entire year. They're typically scientists, engineers, or military personnel, people already comfortable with discipline and hardship. The selection process screens for psychological resilience, team compatibility, and something harder to measure: the ability to find meaning in confinement. These astronauts are training for a specific mission, but little do they know, they are also test subjects in an experiment about human limits. The dome serves as a psychological laboratory where every argument gets logged, every meal gets documented, and every mood swing becomes data. Participants sign up knowing they'll sacrifice a year of normal life to help humanity reach Mars. They enter voluntarily, but once those airlock doors seal, the voluntary part ends. For the next 365 days, they inhabit a world with different rules, where stepping outside requires 45 minutes of suiting up and where a broken water heater becomes a survival crisis. Chapter 2. The Vanishing World. The dome's interior crushes 6 lives into impossibly small spaces. The main floor spans 900 square feet. Imagine 6 adults sharing a modest apartment forever. A single kitchen, 1 bathroom with a shower, 1 composting toilet, a small lab area, and a common workspace. That's it. Upstairs, 424 square feet gets divided into 6 staterooms, though calling them rooms exaggerates their size. Each crew member gets a platform bed and maybe enough floor space to stand and turn around. No soundproofing exists anywhere. You hear every footstep, every cough, every frustrated sigh from your crewmates. Privacy becomes a memory within days. There's literally nowhere to go. You can't take a walk to clear your head. The airlock stays sealed except for scheduled EVAS. You can't shut a door and disappear. The thin walls hide nothing. The bathroom offers the only momentary solitude, but even that gets rationed when 6 people share 1 toilet. Some crew members described feeling like they lived inside each other's thoughts, unable to escape the constant presence of others. The adaptation starts immediately. Crews develop elaborate nonverbal communication systems. Headphones become a universal do not disturb sign. If someone retreats to their bunk and faces the wall, you pretend they've vanished. The shared spaces get divided by invisible boundaries. This corner belongs to the commander during morning planning. That chair becomes the medical officer's reading spot after dinner. Without these unspoken rules, the proximity would drive people mad within weeks. The spacesuit, ironically, becomes the only private room. When the walls close in, crew members suit up for EVAs, extravehicular activities, that are really just walks on volcanic rock. The suit weighs 50 pounds, fogs up constantly, and turns every movement into work. But inside that helmet, you're finally alone with your thoughts. One crew member called it meditation in a terrarium. The absurdity isn't lost on anyone. You need life support equipment just to find solitude. Chapter 3. The death of fresh food at HICs arrives in buckets and boxes, designed to last for years without refrigeration. The entire food system consists of freeze-dried meals, dehydrated vegetables, powdered eggs, canned meat, and shelf-stable starches. No fresh fruit, no crisp vegetables, no refrigerated anything. For 365 consecutive days, every meal gets reconstituted from powder or emptied from a can. The psychological impact hits harder than the nutritional one. By month 2, crew members report menu fatigue, a clinical term for when your brain rejects food from sheer repetition. You know you need calories, but your mouth refuses another bite of rehydrated scrambled eggs. Studies inside the dome found that crews naturally reduce their eating, sometimes dropping to dangerous caloric deficits. The body literally starts consuming muscle mass because the mind cannot tolerate another identical meal. NASA funded specific research to combat this problem. They tested 2 approaches: prepackaged meals that just needed heating versus raw ingredients that crews could combine creatively. The cooking group used more water and power, but they maintained better nutrition and morale. The act of creation, turning powder into something resembling pizza, became therapeutic. One crew held recipe competitions, challenging each other to make edible dinners from dehydrated ingredients. Spam fried rice became a delicacy. Someone figured out how to make tiramisu from powdered dairy and instant coffee. The communal cooking transformed from a chore to a ritual. Every Friday, one crew would declare pizza night, spending hours preparing dough from scratch, reconstituting cheese, mixing sauce from tomato powder. The pizza tasted nothing like Earth pizza. Crew members admitted this freely, but the act of making it together, of pretending normalcy, fed something beyond hunger. They discovered that humans need the ritual of food preparation almost as much as the calories themselves. When the airlock finally opened after 1 year, the emerging crew headed straight for fresh fruit. They devoured papayas, mangoes, and pineapples with an intensity that surprised even them. One participant described tasting fresh pineapple as an almost religious experience. The texture, the juice, the natural sweetness their mouths had forgotten existed. For a full year, they'd sustained themselves on powder and memory. The fresh fruit reminded them they'd been slowly starving for something beyond nutrition. Chapter 4. The Ritual Engine. Without Earth's natural rhythms, no sunrise through windows, no weather changes, no seasonal shifts, the dome threatens to become temporal soup. Days blur together, weeks lose meaning. The crew must manufacture a structure from nothing or risk psychological dissolution. HIC's crews follow strict schedules: wake at 0700, morning briefing at 0730, work blocks, mandatory exercise, dinner at 1830, free time until 2200, 5 days of work, 2 days of weekend. Though weekends inside the dome mean simply different work. The schedule isn't just organization, it's psychological scaffolding. It tells your brain that time still moves forward, that Tuesday differs from Saturday, that progress exists even when every day looks identical. But official schedules only provide a skeleton structure. Crews must create their own meaningful rituals to mark time and maintain identity. One HIC's team established Fun Day Monday movie nights, gathering to watch the same film together, not for entertainment, but for shared experience. Another crew held call sign ceremonies within the first week, giving each member a nickname through elaborate storytelling. These weren't silly games, they were identity anchors in a place designed to erase individuality. Morning exercise became sacred, not optional fitness, but required sanity maintenance. Every day starts with treadmill runs or resistance training, not because Mars's gravity demands but because endorphins might be the only antidepressant available 140 million miles from Earth. The medical officer tracks everyone's workout compliance like vital signs. Skip too many sessions and you're flagged for psychological evaluation. The crews invented celebrations from nothing. Birthdays got marked with cakes made from protein powder and creativity. Someone's halfway point through the mission triggered a dance party in the common room. They watched the same TV series every week. One crew went through all of Doctor Who systematically, discussing episodes like literature. These manufactured moments weren't entertainment. They were temporal landmarks in an endless expanse of identical days, proof that they remained human despite the habitat's best efforts to reduce them to biological machines.
Chapter 5. Distance as Teacher. Communication with Earth operates under one inflexible rule. A minimum 20-minute delay in each direction. Send a message, wait 20 minutes for it to arrive, wait another 20 minutes for any response. A simple question takes 40 minutes to answer. An emergency takes 40 minutes to report. And I love you takes 40 minutes to land. This delay destroys conversation as humans understand it. You can't chat with family, can't banter with friends, can't get immediate comfort during a crisis. Every communication becomes a monologue launched into darkness. Crew members started sending video diaries instead of attempting dialogue, recording 10-minute updates about their day, knowing loved ones would watch them tomorrow while they slept. Birthdays arrive as pre-recorded messages from Earth, always slightly off time, like letters from the dead. The isolation forces rapid intimacy among crew members. Within weeks, these 6 strangers must become everything to each other. Family, therapist, entertainment, adversary, friend. There's no one else. When someone's parent gets sick on Earth, the crew provides comfort because the actual family exists 40 minutes away. When conflict erupts, and sensor badges prove it always does, the crew must resolve it internally because no mediator can help in real time. NASA tracked these social dynamics obsessively. Crews wore badges that measured voice patterns, proximity, and conversation frequency. The data revealed predictable patterns: initial enthusiasm, then withdrawal, then either breakthrough to genuine connection or breakdown into silent coexistence. Successful crews learned to read micro-expressions, sense mood shifts before they escalated, and provide support without being asked. They developed their own language of gestures and glances, communicating faster than the speed of light. The 20-minute wall taught crews that human connection doesn't require proximity, it requires presence. Earth might send messages, but Earth couldn't be present. Only the 5 people sharing your recycled air understood your daily reality. One commander noted that by month 6, the crew felt more like a single organism than 6 individuals. They breathed together, ate together, suffered together, and slowly forgot what it felt like to be alone. The dome forced them to evolve past normal human social boundaries, creating something between family and fusion. Chapter 6. The Creative Imperative. Deprivation breeds innovation. When everything familiar gets stripped away, humans don't just endure, they create. Inside the dome, this creation becomes a survival mechanism. Chapter 6. The Creative Imperative. Deprivation breeds innovation. When everything familiar gets stripped away, humans don't just endure, they create. Inside the dome, this creation becomes a survival mechanism. Crews transformed freeze-dried ingredients into elaborate meals, not because they needed nutrition, but because they needed proof they remained more than animals. One team spent entire evenings making sushi from rice, nori sheets, and canned fish, presenting it on improvised plates with ceremonial precision. Another figured out how to make bread rise in low humidity, spending weeks perfecting the technique. The bread tasted mediocre. Everyone admitted this, but the act of baking connected them to 1,000-year-old human traditions. Virtual reality headsets provided 5-minute escapes to tropical beaches or mountain forests. Crew members rationed these sessions like medication, knowing that too much escape might make return unbearable. One participant described putting on the headset and standing in a virtual forest, just listening to wind through leaves, a sound that doesn't exist inside the dome. When 5 minutes ended, returning to vinyl walls felt like drowning in reverse. Small pleasures magnified into profound experiences. The sound of volcanic rock crunching under boots during EVAs became music. The rare glimpse of clouds through the porthole prompted gathering and pointing. One crew member brought a ukulele and gave weekly concerts, the same songs repeatedly, but nobody complained. Repetition became comfort. Someone else taught origami, turning scrap paper into birds that would never fly. These weren't hobbies, they were assertions of humanity against an environment designed to reduce them to mission parameters. The dome's design included no aesthetic considerations. Everything was purely functional. So crews decorated. They hung drawings, arranged rocks collected during EVAs, and created gardens from the few potted plants allowed for research. One bathroom got designated the reading room, its walls covered in printed articles and poems. The commander's cabin door became a message board where the crew left notes, jokes, and encouragement. By mission end, the sterile dome looked lived in, marked by human presence like cave paintings, proof that people existed here, that they maintained identity despite the habitat's industrial indifference. Chapter 7, the Mars Protocol. Every adaptation inside the dome becomes data for Mars mission planning. NASA doesn't run HICs for entertainment. They're building a human survival manual, one breakdown at a time. The food studies reveal that menu variety trumps efficiency. Future Mars missions will carry more diverse ingredients despite the weight penalty because psychological starvation kills missions as yearly as physical starvation. Crews need the ability to create, not just consume. The act of cooking together might matter more than the calories consumed. Communication research proved that the 20-minute delay fundamentally alters human psychology. Mars crews won't just be far from Earth, they'll be psychologically severed from it. Selection criteria now emphasize emotional self-sufficiency and the ability to form rapid, intense bonds with crewmates. The person who needs daily family contact won't survive the void. Conflict resolution data showed that small irritations explode in confined spaces. The sound of someone's chewing becomes intolerable by month 3. A crewmate who doesn't clean dishes might trigger rage by month 6. Future missions will train extensively in de-escalation, teaching astronauts to recognize their own irrationality in confinement. The badges that tracked verbal conflicts revealed that successful crews don't avoid conflict, they process it quickly and move forward. Privacy research discovered that humans need solitude like they need oxygen. Mars habitat designs now include private spaces, even if tiny. The spacesuit EVAs taught that manufactured privacy works. Future Mars bases might include meditation pods, where crew members can be alone without life support gear. The cost of transporting extra space to Mars gets weighed against the cost of psychological breakdown 140 million miles from help. Perhaps most critically, the dome revealed that crew selection might matter more than any technology. Technical skills can be taught, but the ability to find joy in powdered eggs, to create celebration from nothing, to maintain identity in isolation, these traits determine survival. NASA now screens for psychological flexibility for people who thrive in routine but adapt to crisis, who can lead and follow within the same day, who can watch their world shrink to 1,200 square feet and somehow expand their internal universe in response. Outro. The HIC's dome still sits on Mauna Loa's slope, waiting for the next crew to enter its airlock and disappear from Earth. Each mission adds pages to humanity's guide for leaving this planet. Not the rocket equations or life support schematics, but the harder manual, how to remain human when everything human gets stripped away. The volunteers who spend a year in that dome don't just simulate Mars. They prove something fundamental about our species. Deprive us of fresh food and we'll create feasts from powder. Lock us in vinyl walls and we'll cover them with art. Sever us from Earth and we'll form new families in the void. Take away privacy and we'll find solitude in spacesuits. These aren't just coping mechanisms. They're declarations that humanity transcends environment. When humans finally launch toward Mars, sealed in a spacecraft barely larger than the AEC's dome, facing 260 days of transit each way, knowing that Earth exists only in memory and transmitted messages, they'll carry these lessons. They'll know that Tuesday game night matters as much as oxygen recycling. They'll understand that making pizza from powder isn't about nutrition, but about remaining more than mission parameters. They'll recognize isolation not as emptiness, but as a transformation space. The dome taught us that reaching Mars requires more than rockets. It requires people willing to compress their existence, to find meaning in repetition, to create joy from nothing, to become both less and more than human. Every person who spent a year inside that Hawaiian habitat has traveled further than distance can measure. They've gone to the place where human adaptability meets its limit and then pushed past it. Mars isn't really 140 million miles away. It's 1 year inside a dome, learning to love powdered eggs and the sound of your crewmates breathing. It's discovering that human connection doesn't require proximity, that privacy exists in the mind, that celebration can be manufactured from a mission schedule and freeze-dried cake mix. The journey to Mars started not with rockets, but with 6 strangers entering an airlock, knowing they wouldn't breathe natural air for 365 days and choosing that confinement anyway. That choice, to voluntarily surrender Earth for the possibility of something beyond it, might be the most human act imaginable. Inside the dome, volunteers don't just practice for Mars. They prove we're already capable of the journey. We just need to remember to pack the powdered milk, the playing cards, and the ability to find home in the space between stars.